Do short people have a genetic advantage? Is it easier for shorter people to build muscle? That's the question we're going to be answering today. So the answer in short is usually yes, but it's a bit more complicated. We all know that short guy who goes from not looking like he lifts to eventually looking like he lifts and has multiple years of training. Shorter people seem to grow and develop muscle at an accelerated rate. And this is because when short people build muscle, the muscle is more compact and fills their frame easier due to the smaller general frame. Like for example, right, if someone were to gain 5 pounds of muscle in their, let's just say lats for example, the muscle will be more compact on that smaller frame because it doesn't need to spread out as much. In fact, it doesn't even have enough room to split out completely. It's similar to, gaining fat. If you see a 180 pound person who's 5'4", he's gonna be really chunky. But if you see someone who's like 200 pounds and 6 feet tall, they're probably not gonna be all that chunky. But yeah, this is why you see a lot of people like Jeff Nippard and Greg Doucette who are like 5'5" and under, have really great physiques. Especially when Greg was natural, or I guess claimed to be natural, since there's a lot of speculation around that. But in as much as that's the truth, it's clear that they have a lot of muscular development, and it seems as though a lot of these people are just shorter. But it goes even further than that, because if you go to actual natural bodybuilding pros, you'll see that a lot of them are really short. Mishak here, probably one of the craziest physiques that I've seen, is like 5'2". Zebin Yu, I don't know how I pronounced that. Maybe I pronounced it right, maybe I pronounced it wrong. He's 5'5", which means just about everyone else in this photo with him is no taller than 5'7". So yeah, being short helps. I can almost guarantee you that if you dropped 3 inches, you would certainly look more muscular. Anyone watching this video, if they dropped 3 inches, they would certainly look more muscular than they do right now, assuming they have the same amount of muscle. That being said, this doesn't actually play out perfectly when you look at pro bodybuilding winners, particularly those in the Mr. Olympia. Mr. Olympia winner heights can range anywhere from 6'2" to 5'4", which is an extremely wide range for winners. The average height for the Olympia winners, when you tally it all up, is 5'7", and the average height for an American throughout the years of Mr. Olympia is 5'8". So the winners tend to be slightly shorter than average, but it's really not that big of a deal, so it's not even worth really getting too hung up on. So why am I saying that being short is still a somewhat decent advantage, even despite all of this? Well, when you look at the guys who are on gear especially, and by the way, most guys obviously aren't on gear, but I'm talking about the elite of the elite right now, so I'm talking about people who are all on gear. We look at the guys on gear, you can fill out your frame really well, and that makes you look much more full, which makes height less of an issue there. In fact, when you're on gear and you're too short, you can actually max out your frame in a sense. I think a great example of what I'm talking about is looking at Lee Priest. It's actually not clear to me whether he could fit an extra pound of muscle on his frame. He just looks like he's totally maxed out. And despite that though, he never actually won a Mr. Olympia. And why might that be? This is where I talk about some of the relative advantages to being a bit taller. Taller people tend to have a better flow to their muscles because they're given more room to breathe. It tends to look more natural and aesthetic, like it's not being constantly pumped up by an air balloon or something. People who are taller also tend to look more imposing. This is just human psychology. Put 2 guys together and they have similar musculature, but one of them is 6 inches taller than the other. The taller person is gonna look more imposing when they stand side by side, which is gonna make them most likely win that bodybuilding event. And on the topic of flowing better, absolute size isn't really everything in bodybuilding. It's probably the most important thing, yes, but when you get to the top levels and like the highest of the high levels, it becomes less of the most important thing. The WNBF world champion Samuel Hartman is about 5'10", and he has this really majestic and aesthetic physique that makes the crowd ooh and ah. Not to mention he's also a fantastic poser. So there's really trade-offs to being tall and being short, depending on how much you can and how well you can fill your frame. It's just that filling your frame up when you're above average height becomes extremely difficult. But when you do it, you end up getting some unique advantages. It is worth noting though with Samuel Hartman that he was actually much taller than his competitors. So the average guy, I still think, sees moderate benefits to being slightly shorter than average as opposed to being slightly taller than average. He seems to be somewhat of an outlier. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that when you're shorter, it's easier for you to go from looking normal to looking jacked. Hence why I think a lot of natural bodybuilders tend to benefit from being moderately short. But once you actually max things out and you're able to fill out your frame, then height doesn't seem to matter as much. But most people are natural and most people don't have crazy genetics. So in practicality, yeah, being short is a bit better. But even when you add drugs in and everything, I still think that there is a soft cap to how tall you can be as a top level bodybuilder, which caps out around 5'11". Arnold Schwarzenegger is actually the only bodybuilder to be over 6 feet tall and win the Olympia. One can make the argument that Arnold is actually an extreme outlier here, in as much as he's 3 inches taller than the next tallest winner, which is Lee Haney at 5'11". Arnold, not only is he the only person over 6 feet tall to win it, but he was 6'2". That is genuinely very tall. But when you look at the entire graph, every height from 5'4" to 5'11" seems to be pretty decently well represented. And then there's a 3-inch gap at the top with Arnold. So one could argue that he's a really big outlier here, but I won't do that for the sake of this video. It's just something that I think that you might want to consider. There is a small wrench in my idea that I haven't talked about yet. But before that, if you're enjoying this video and like my insight into this sort of stuff, consider joining my coaching program. The applications are in the description. Anyways, a lot of people who are tall and athletic, who will be good in bodybuilding because a lot of bodybuilders tend to be very athletic, or rather it's probably more accurate to say that people who are good at bodybuilding have high potential for athleticism because muscle strength and muscle size are correlated, and muscle strength and muscle size are needed in a lot of athletic competitions, obviously. But yeah, that combination of height and muscle can lead to far more lucrative careers than bodybuilding. Stuff like football, like NFL, American football, hockey, or even high jump or boxing, and even the NBA, depending on your play style, are far more beneficial for tall, athletic guys who may be decent bodybuilders, even great bodybuilders, if they decided to take their career another way. Average height of an NFL player kind of depends on your position, but you know, some of them are like average height of like 6'2". Average NHL player is like 6'1". Average NBA player is like 6'6". Average high jumper is also like 6'4". And yes, I know high jumpers are very tall and lanky. They're kind of notoriously so, but I can almost guarantee you if they decide to eat a bunch of food and gain a bunch of muscle, they would be very good bodybuilders. This isn't high jump per se, it's long jump and triple jump, but Matt Does Fitness, who has been proven to be natural tons of times at this point, Matt Does Fitness actually used to be a a long jumper and triple jumper, and look at his physique now, he's crazy. The only lucrative sport for short people, I think, is gymnastics. I might be missing some, but gymnastics is the one that comes to mind. So for tall people, there's just a lot of competition with other sports, which makes things really difficult to assess, right? There might be some NBA players or NFL players who are well over 6 feet tall who would be as great as Arnold Schwarzenegger was. We just don't know. There's very likely potential bodybuilders with latent potential killer physiques that will never be noticed, or rather, never be awakened. So while I'm saying shorter bodybuilders have a moderate advantage based off what I'm seeing, that might not be the case in the end analysis because of the selection issue. So I'm open to being wrong, but this is just where my mind is right now and how I see things going on right now. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.